Thanks, everybody. Morning, everybody. Back to business for America. Back to business for the president-elect Donald Trump. Returning from the Thanksgiving holiday to a tug of war inside his transition team over who should be our next Secretary of State. Morning, everybody. Hope you had a great break with your family and friends. I'm Bill Hammer back here live. How you doing?
I did. Did you?
See it. Fantastic.
It was great,
really
right?
Great time.
Nice to have a few days off.
Yeah.
All right. So welcome back. Everybody back to work and back to business today. I'm Martha McCallum. So this seems like a pretty bitter internal battle that is going on in the transition team over the nation's top diplomat decision. All of this now going public over the weekend. The latest reports point to two leading candidates. You've got longtime Trump supporter Rudy Giuliani, and then in the other corner, you've got Governor Mitt Romney, an outspoken opponent who during the campaign called the president-elect a phony and a con. Top Trump loyalists are not happy about the idea of Mitt Romney as potential Secretary of State.
People feel betrayed to think that Governor Romney, who went out of his way to question the character and the intellect and the integrity of Donald Trump, now our president-elect, would be given the most significant cabinet post of all, Secretary of State. And that is a decision that only one man can make, President-elect Donald Trump. We don't even know if he voted for Donald Trump. He and his consultants were nothing but awful to Donald Trump for a year.
Okay, so that's one thing to follow today. The other one is this. Mr. Trump sounding off on the recount efforts underway in Wisconsin, calling it sad and ridiculous.
What a weekend, right? Peter Ducey is live outside Trump Tower in New York City. So, Peter, do we expect that we might get a decision on Secretary of State or any other posts as early as today?
We think that it's possible, Martha, because the transition team had been telling us to not expect anything until the week after the holiday, so that would be today, and they are always full of surprises. So we are here outside Trump Tower just waiting for word. To expand a little bit on the controversy surrounding the Secretary of State, what's important to note is that Kellyanne Conway, who you just heard from there, is the person that the transition team has been using almost exclusively to get word out from the inside, from the top tier of the transition. And she has been a very vocal anti-Mitt Romney voice for the last several days. There has not been anybody from the inside of the transition team coming out and pitching Mitt Romney, talking about the pros of possibly having him as the Secretary of State. So that sounds like it's going to be kind of a complicated decision, maybe not one that we would get today or in the next few days. But today, here at Trump Tower, Mr. President-elect does have 8 folks coming by to take the elevator ride up to the 26th floor for job interviews, and the transition team is telling us they like multiple people for multiple different positions, which makes sense when you look at the very least, their job titles. There is the Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark, who gained a lot of prominence recently as a critic of the Black Lives Matter movement. Then you've got Pennsylvania Republican Congressman Lou Barletta and Paul Atkins, a one-time SEC commissioner. There were a pair of cabinet nominations over the holiday weekend. And somebody else that we're keeping an eye on who has not accepted his request to accept a nomination would be Dr. Ben Carson. First half of last week, there was an update every day about whether or not he wanted to be the HUD secretary in the next administration, but it's been all quiet all weekend, so now we're waiting for that. Martha?
Fascinating. All right. So in terms of this recount story that also bubbled up a lot over the weekend, Peter, what is Donald Trump's counter to the pushback on the Wisconsin vote?
Martha, the president-elect agrees that there were millions of illegally cast votes. He just thinks that it benefited the Democrats, and he thinks that the only thing all these illegal votes did was dent his margin of victory. So at the end of the long holiday weekend, the president-elect took to Twitter and he wrote this, quote, "In addition to winning the Electoral College in a landslide, I won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people who voted illegally." And he said, quote, "Serious voter fraud in Virginia, New Hampshire, and California. So why isn't the media reporting on this? Serious bias, big problem." Mr. Trump also subtly swiped at all the Democrats who were knocking him for not winning the popular vote with this pair of tweets. He said, "It would have been much easier for me to win the so-called popular vote than the Electoral College in that I would only campaign in 3 or 4 states. Instead of the 15 states that I visited, I would have won even more easily and convincingly, but smaller states are forgotten." Now, as for the talk about illegal voting. So far, Mr. Trump has not offered any concrete evidence that there were millions of illegally cast votes, but neither have the Clinton campaign lawyers who have joined up with this Wisconsin recount effort because they say they think there may have been outside interference aiding the president-elect.
Yeah.
Martha?
It's going to keep you busy. Peter, thank you very much.
More now on the recount, what it all means, what it's all about. John McCormack, senior writer for the Weekly Standard. John, how you doing? Good morning to you in Washington, D.C. Take you back to November 9th, the morning after the election, when Hillary Clinton said the following.
We must accept this result and then look to the future. Donald Trump is going to be our president. We owe him an open mind and the chance to lead.
So that was then. What's up now?
Well, what the Clinton campaign is arguing is that, hey, we didn't file this recount petition. Jill signed it at the Green Party, and we're just
joined
there.
it.
They joined it, exactly. So people, I think you might argue that, the Clinton campaign is maybe hiding behind Jill Stein's skirt here. So I do think that the Clinton campaign, if they go out and they start suggesting that the vote was illegally hacked, I mean, there's no evidence for that whatsoever. But they do raise that possibility. They note that Russians were involved in trying to influence the outcome of the election, but there is no evidence whatsoever that the election was hacked. And it would take, not only Wisconsin, but it takes Pennsylvania and Michigan to overturn the results in the Electoral College. Trump won Pennsylvania by nearly 70,000 votes, Michigan by about 10,000, Wisconsin by 30,000. And more to the point, they've already checked the paper ballots with spot checks in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. So if there were anything amiss, I don't see why that wouldn't have been caught already.
Here is the Wisconsin final tally. Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton by a percentage point, about 27,000 raw votes, and Jill Stein barely got more than 27,000. She used 30,980. Republicans would argue what Democrats are trying to do is make Donald Trump look illegitimate even before he takes the oath of office, John.
Well, certainly, and some people are guilty of that by suggesting things baselessly in the media, suggesting that there are statistical anomalies. There was a report in New York Magazine, actually, that kicked this all off, and the statistical analysis there was quickly debunked. If you actually look nationwide, the statistics between counties that use paper ballots and non-paper ballots, there really isn't much of a difference when you account for demographics. So I do think that people have to be aware that they shouldn't be trying to undermine the legitimacy of the vote, and that goes for everyone from the media to Democrats, as well as the president-elect, who has now gone out and said without evidence of his own that there were millions of votes illegally cast.
2 million votes, in fact. He says Jill Stein wants to raise money. By my count on Sunday morning, I think she had raised more than $6 million. There may be a point to that. John, thank you so much. John McCormack, analysis there from Washington, D.C. Thanks. 8 past.
Thank you.